Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever episode of the Diversity Minded podcast. This is a completely new venture for the both of us. My name's James, and this is the lovely
Melissa.
Melissa. And today we're going to cover quite a few bits. The reason that this show even exists is because we're two very interesting people, I'd say. Completely different backgrounds, completely different cultures, completely different countries, and yet somehow we're almost the brain same, and we've come together to talk about how those things work and being, a diversity of mind in the workplace, being actually diverse in the workplace in all those kind of ways, and how we navigate that in today's world with probably a lot of undiagnosed things hanging around while trying to get work done. So it's really interesting. But what's more interesting is your background, Melissa, because you've been there, done that, seen some things, and I kind of want to hear, and so do the people, who are you? What do you do? Where do you come from?
Thanks, James. So I think I introduced myself as a Singamera Kiwi. So half
That's a handful,
Singaporean,
that. I love that.
half New Zealander, but spent a lot of my childhood in Texas and moved over to the UK to support my grandparents about 6.5 years ago. So, and my background is equally diverse in my career. And, you mentioned the undiagnosed, undiagnosed, well, what do you call them? I don't even know. Like, I don't want to say that
What
they're
do you
issues.
call us? Yes,
but
beings.
I recently was working with a company that does brain scans and came to find out. I always guessed that I probably had ADHD, but came to find out that I was likely dyslexic, which makes a whole lot of sense. But I had no idea at all because I could read and write from a young age and all these things. So anyway, I became really interested in the diversity of mindsets when I learned about personality profiling. And that was because I learned only at the beginning of last year that my personality is likely the reason why I've suffered and had major challenges in the traditional corporate environment. And you said that you had too, right?
All big time.
Right. So then we came to find out that we both are low in compliance when it comes to the DISC assessment. So dominance,
Legendary
influence,
discs.
dominance, influence, steadiness, compliance. And those with low compliance are independent in the way they think. They're not great with rules or processes and often question the way things are done if they see a better way. And obviously for middle management and the corporate environment, that's not easy.
No, it's not. And, from my background especially, just to give people some background on the crazy, I guess, I started in advertising. So I studied advertising at university, and then worked very hard, as you do, managed to get a couple of job offers out the gate, which is rare. And it was choosing between agency side and client side. And if anyone's familiar with kind of those two concepts, you'll know. But for those who don't, client side is working directly for the big brand, and agency side is working for the people that the big brands hire to make the cool things happen. And I feel like I was not led astray, but in my naivete of being young and just out of uni, I went for the cool company, big job title, only to come to realise that it was just incredibly corporate. There's nothing wrong with the company, but incredibly corporate, and I did not realise how not good of an environment that was for me. Like, hit me like a truck, and it immediately derailed me, and like, oh my god, is this it? Is this what I'm gonna have to do my whole life? Not knowing anything about the personality profile stuff and things like that. And the rest of my career follows a similar path, kind of jumping from different agency to different agency, finally looking for that answer until I set up my own company and pursued self-employment. And that's actually been the most stable thing I've done so far. So it's incredible how the stuff that, like, if you've never done a DISC assessment, you'll have no idea. But it is just that. It's scarily good for how few questions it asks, to be honest. And mine was quite funny when we went through mine together. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and that low compliance stuff and the undiagnosed ADHD, I think, has played a massive factor in it. And again, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to create this show, because we know there's others out there that are like, what's wrong with me? And it's not something wrong with you per se, it's just we're different, we think different, and how do we take advantage of that? And how do we grow companies knowing that those people might be working in there as well? But what do you think?
Yeah, no, those are all really great points, James. And I think that one of the important points, I hear it's kind of like PTSD. A lot of people say, oh, I've got PTSD or I've got ADHD. And I think that we really shouldn't diminish the true, um, effects of having one of those diagnoses, and the fact that we don't know for sure if we do, but when I was younger, unregulated emotions, not being able to kind of control my, or think, so like I wasn't able to really consider how people would respond to my directness or my honesty, and then feeling really bored quite easily, and needing constant challenges. It's not really the same today, where kids are just given devices and they can't sit still because they're literally frying their brains with technology.
Brain rot is real.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. But the personality stuff, I'm really passionate about diversity and inclusion, and especially, coming from a mixed background, and I never really fit in anyway, aside from the fact that I thought differently, and I just, from a cultural perspective, never really fit in. And I think that learning about my personality and understanding that I wasn't so abnormal, it was just that I was different from a lot of the people around me, and that but however, that does pose a really great benefit, because then you have an opportunity to learn how to modify your behavior. If we're just hanging around with people that are all like us, the likelihood of us learning, growing, evolving is slim. So I think that there's a lot to be said in understanding what your personality profile is like, and then how you can leverage that to really promote innovation and change and true diversity across an organization. Because, as we talk about inclusion, diversity, a lot of people in organizations are ticking boxes, and they're saying, oh, well, you're this gender or this culture, but not necessarily going deeper to establish that they are truly and kind of fostering their true differences from a mindset perspective.
Absolutely. And it, like, DEI and EDI is in a really interesting place right now. I think DEI especially has just been taken into politics somehow, when it kind of wasn't before. And just for anyone at home, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion for DEI, I'm guessing. EDI, what's
same?
That?
It's just backwards. sorry. Maybe that's my dyslexia kicking in. It's equity.
The proof in the pudding. There's the diversity for you right there. There was me thinking, I ain't up to date on my acronyms. This is crazy.
I just did it backwards.
But no, all works the same. But just on that point, then it's become like politicized in a weird way. But like in a normal corporate setting, what do you see as the current state of DEI right now? Box ticking is kind of synonymous with this whole thing, and how we avoid that. But what's your general take on how things are done at the moment?
So, people have quotas within the organization. They set quotas and then they go about trying to recruit diverse people from diverse backgrounds to fill those quotas, without really considering the end goal. Like, the end goal for bringing in different cultures and people, and a really great blend, is to drive innovation and to build things more efficiently, and to problem solve more creatively. And I think that there's a big layer that's being missed in how they're approaching the issues.
Yeah, and it's always, especially for anyone from a diverse background will feel this. It's like, you have this in the back of your head. It's like, did I earn this, or was this a quota? Like, did they like what's really happened in the background here, and how do I know the real kind of culture and soul of this company to the point where I'm not being kind of dupes, if you will, I guess. And but what do you think is actually going to drive that change from taking it to a place of ticking boxes, hitting quotas, to like meaningful impact and making it not some kind of political tick box, but an actual put the right people in your team from different places, and it creates magic? What do you think that driving force is?
Well, so I'm actually, what came to mind when you were talking is, my sister's vegan. And just if I can use this as an example, that I think a lot of people, a lot of vegan organizations attract other vegans who have the same values and the same mindset.
Birds of a feather.
Correct. However, what vegan organizations could benefit from are people from the farming industry or other agricultural organizations that could help input, so that you're kind of meeting in the middle and you're bringing people along on the journey. I personally don't eat meat, not fully vegan yet, but I've always been really passionate about meeting people where they're at. And I think that it's easy to ostracize people if you're not understanding their perspective. And so if you take, for instance, inclusion, diversity at school. So I was really shocked to hear how much bullying goes on around race still in a country like England, and how people can face racism every single day, even though they're born here, just because they may not be a white, but then I think about, okay, well, what's the mindset of those children that are learning these behaviors? And often they may be in certain groups of society where they don't interact with anybody else from different cultures. And so that is their mindset. And that's not going to change so long as they continue sticking within their same ways of thinking in their same communities and not really getting that outside perspective. So it's the same in socioeconomic backgrounds as it is in schools, as it is in the workplace. I think that who we surround ourselves with, what's the saying? So you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yep, 100%. And it's really interesting. There's so many moving parts to that. I mean, there's not even one solution, but there's so many moving parts to that problem. One of which is in my realm, which is the increasing echo chambers and bubbles people get caught in on social algorithms. So for those who don't know, I run a social media company. I have to be chronically online for a living, so I see all of it day in, day out. And it is fascinating how you get, like, I'm aware of it because I know fairly, how the tech works, but in general, you have to train your algorithms now, train your social media platforms to show you something different if you want it to. You have to be extremely self-aware about where you are, especially and usually with this stuff I'm referring to Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, TikTok and YouTube Shorts, right? These endless flows of short form media, they will completely form to a person's personality, interest, all that kind of stuff, and it's fairly impossible to break yourself out of it unless you actually spend time trimming the weeds. So it's on TikTok specifically, you can hold on a video, press not interested, or scroll by it quite quickly so you don't give it the watch time, so the algorithm doesn't think you want more of that, because people can get kind of rage baited into different places. So if you're on something you hate and you're watching it going, I can't believe this person's saying this, the algorithm thinks you just want more of that. So you just get even more of that world to you. So we have to tackle that from a tech point of view. There are especially the younger gens. I'm either Gen Z or I'm millennial, depending on what blog you read. I'm 96, so I'm right in the middle.
Shut up.
So yeah, it's weird. So depending on where I look, like I just about remember before the internet. And I've seen it all happen. So I'm like, and the internet is just one big in-joke, by the way. If you miss one thing, you're cooked, because there's several jokes on top of layered on something else, which means you're out the loop. Hence why a lot of companies are kind of trash with memes and funny anything, because they're so behind on what's actually going on. But that's besides the point. what is the point is people have to be more self-aware and want to bring that diversity into their life. And if you're stuck in one silo, which would be the corporate terminology for it, you're not really going to get many places, because you're only going to see what you want to see. And a lot of people find comfort in that. So breaking out is a very self-aware thing to do, and it's probably quite difficult on a mass scale, at least from a social media tech point of view. But we can do it more in the workplace. On the offline scale, that might be where we help the online improve itself. But that's a big old problem that I am not qualified to fix, but I'll give it my best go. And that's what this show's all about, to kind of talk about those kind of things. But, understanding people's personalities, that probably goes a lot into what we're talking about here, because certain personalities will be inclined to follow said rules or not, or to get very angry and passionate about something, or not care too much. What kind of, how do you analyze the importance of understanding personality?
Well, I mean, everybody is so unique. And I think that in order to really show up as your most authentic self, what better way than to understand your personality and why you're driven to behave the way that you are. I think that, I like DISC because it's easy to remember. And or there's the colors which are associated. So D, dominance, those people are, direct, they like challenges, they are high achievers typically, and they like to move quickly. It's also the red color if you're doing the cut by the color. Influence are the people who are highly communicative. They are pretty positive and not great organizers, but have a real need to get on with people. And one of their challenges is that they fear rejection. So the high dominant people fear loss of control. And then you have the steady people. So I think that there are lots of steady people in England, and I think that that's because it's don't engage in conflict, kind of keep try to keep the peace. Yes, great team players, supporting of everybody, but sometimes gets lost in needing that. Oh, we've got a visitor.
Sorry, the dog's in for the podcast, by the way, everyone. You're probably going to hear that every now
What
and then.
personality type? We haven't done their assessment.
Absolute nutter, that's his personality type. I'm pretty sure he just woke himself up from a dream.
So the steady, they fear instability. So keeping things safe is really important to them. And they're usually green and then blue for compliance. Great with process. They love information, analytically and logically minded. They're the really clever one. Like, I actually really love high compliance people because I love the way their brains work, and it's so the opposite of mine. But they can often get pretty annoyed with me because I know that's impossible to believe.
Yeah,
but...
I know that's happened with me before. I'll tell you that right now.
Right, but because I'm constantly challenging their ways of doing things. So the self-awareness piece that you talked about is really key. And the first step to understanding the world around us is to have self-awareness. And if we don't have insights into why we do the things that we do, then sometimes we just think that we're weird or different or difficult or all of these things that are shaped by our childhood, our environment, our traumas, and then we can it was interesting that you talked about the algorithms and whatever energy you're kind of putting out there. Well, it's the same with our minds. If we're focusing on all the things that are wrong with us, we're never actually going to improve those things. It'll probably just create more of the same. And so it's really interesting that you talked about the tech world in terms of the social world being that way. It's literally like the universe attracting the same as what you continue clicking on.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the philosophy you talk to, we're already in some kind of hybrid cyborg society where that that algorithmic element is now part of us as a makeup. The internet connects us all, and does shift our mindset to certain things. Because if you've been served 10 videos about how terrible women are, and then you go out into the world and a woman rejects you, it reinforces everything you've ever had, and before you know it, you've got another Andrew Tate red pillar. Like, it's just how, and then they're stuck in that, and then that's forever. No self awareness, because they'll never see anything outside of it. It's fairly tragic in some ways, because it's a kind of unstoppable force unless you have that basis of like personality recognition, awareness, and then action. There's like 3 tiers to go up, in which, you know, a lot of people on the day to day, I'm not thinking in that sense of going, right, how do I improve myself continuously? Some people don't actually think like that all the time, you know, and sometimes those that are trying to improve themselves all the time will find themselves in a kind of false positivity loop, and they think they're making a bunch of progress because you watch a bunch of videos on psychology and everything else. Been there, this guy, and think you're actually improving yourself when you're kind of not. So it's interesting, you know, just someone who's just coming off the back of, you know, probably like 6 months to a year's worth of clinical burnout. It is given a fresh perspective on, you know, understanding me better and enforcing balance and everything else. But again, that personal awareness and thing is so interesting, which is why people need to take a disc assessment. I just don't, what is it, 25 questions, I think it is. And I don't
Took 7
know
minutes,
how,
maximum 7 minutes.
I just don't know how it guessed so well with that. I was like, okay, that's spooky. So they do work, and it's one stepping stone into improvement, but also it's one stepping stone for, like you said, management, to figure out how they can work with the people within their company when they are diverse of mind. Because it's when corporates try and take the copy and paste approach for everyone is where you'll get people like me who will pretty much leave as soon as they can because they don't feel seen.
That's so. I was successful in my corporate life in spite of the challenges that I a lot of times created for myself. Like, if I could go back and apologize to some of the leaders that I really, you know, at the beginning, especially, you know, when I was at Gartner, and I said, I feel like I may not be right for this role because you can't put me in a box. And I was really clear about not being put in a box. And for that, I did a lot of really great things for companies, but I constantly challenged the way that things were done, or wanted to kind of do things differently. And when you're looking at multi-billion-dollar companies that have set processes, they aren't built for doing things. And I'll just add, though, that it was for the best interests of the client, best interests of the company. Those two things always have to match. But in my heart, I would say, well, but this is the right thing to do, and it would just constantly be no. And then I get frustrated and feel like the world was against me, when actual fact it wasn't personal. Sometimes you just have to follow the rules. And as difficult as that may seem, I wasn't getting paid enough to you know, challenge those things. That it's not my company. Do you know what I mean? So, and if they did something different every single time a salesperson went to them, the business would be in total disarray. So, of course, there needed to be systems in place and structure. So, yeah,
100%.
I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, and from someone who's like technically been on both sides of the coin now, I'm technically have been an employer for a while and had to manage companies. Like, personality wise, I know I'm not the best manager. I'd class myself more as a kind of leader. Not trying to blow smoke up my arse or anything, but it's more about how I try and lead by example and not get too into the nitty gritty, because me and details, we no mix no bueno, don't like it. So in that sense, working around that, I know that's my weakness. I know all of my weaknesses, and I try and work around them. But that individual personability element is the way I ended up conquering a lot of barriers that I could have had in terms of staff relationships. So, like, I would set aside probably way more time than I needed to, just to chat and know them better and do things like personality tests, figure out what works, what doesn't. Because tailoring one-to-ones was the thing that helped me get over that barrier the most, because there can be this in startups especially. You go from like, there's a size difference that changes the dynamic of a company, and it can go from like startup, everyone's on the same level, flat structure, to corporate really quickly. And that was something that was, again, a culture shock for me. But tailoring one-to-ones to each person, and I used to do a half and half structure. So I used to do 30 minutes, like, again, they're an hour long. They didn't need to be, but I made them an hour anyway, just in case. 30 minutes for work-based stuff, and the other 30 minutes, everything outside work. Can I help you get a side hustle going? Like, embracing that. You can talk about anything in here with me. And a lot of larger companies don't kind of have that flexibility in terms of, a lot of people are scared to say they've got a side hustle, or or they still like fear it. Even if it is okay, it's not very clear on what the rules are. And you're creating that zone of anything can go here, it's fine. That can really, really help, especially as a company does grow. And I know a lot of managers are very good at getting to know their people on an individual basis. But a lot of the times the managers need more time in their schedules from their managers to make this happen in this thought process, because that success all comes from that middle chunk. That's where all the good work gets done. So it's just a case of, are we giving our managers enough time to manage? It's always an interesting one.
Well, so when I was coaching and doing these feedback sessions with leaders, a lot of the leaders, especially if they are very rigid with processes and they have quite a lot of structure, they tend to prefer people to follow their way. So your and my personality, we're the same when we lead. We give quite a lot of trust and ownership, because we're trusting that they're doing the stuff that we're not great at. And that works really well. But then we also fail to follow up and hold them accountable. And, we're kind of more, yeah, you know what I'm saying. But so a lot of the times leaders / managers, all managers should be leaders, should be looking at what made them, why are they in the role in the first place? And how much could they delegate to help others get better, so that they have an opportunity to move up in the organization? And where could they better focus their energy around strategy and like the bigger picture opportunities, rather than like being down in the weeds? And I think a lot of managers forget to delegate and hand over responsibility so that they can do the more kind of like thought leader stuff.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point, because I remember just some of the struggles I had with, like, I don't want to do things the exact way you want me to do them, because I can do it this way quicker, or I would struggle to do it this way. And this was back before I'd done a personality assessment, or like had even an inkling that it was undiagnosed ADHD. I thought it was just a bit hyperactive and couldn't focus. So in that sense, when there's all that stuff underneath, and then you're like, no, do it this way. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it that way. Stop trying to make me do it. It can just lead to so many clashes. And yeah, it's just taking the time to find that out. And I think especially the point you bring up around, why are you in this role? Like, that for me was always so big. Like, I think this is why a lot of companies have struggled to work with Gen Z in general, because purpose is more important to them than it has been in any other generation. But what happened over the pandemic was purpose became much more for forefront for most other generations as well. Because we were like, oh, we could die at like any minute, and you want me to do what? Why? And I think everyone just started asking why a little bit more. And when you start asking why, processes become a little bit in terms of why we should do the exact thing we're doing. So it's not just a uniquely Gen Z problem, I feel, anymore. So constantly reminding or going back over, why do you want to be in this role? Where do you want to get to? Let's help you go in the direction you want to go in. Bring it back to them, make them the center of that universe. That's really important. If someone had actually done that for me at some point, I think I would have been less of a rebel and more of a try to be rule follower, I think.
Well, though we are encouraging diversity of mindsets and diversity of cultures and diversity of genders and all of those things, everybody wants to be accepted for who they are. And how we show up in our most authentic way to feel accepted and not judged, or not, not be berated because we're not good in certain areas, or I think it's really important. And just job descriptions nowadays, and the whole recruiting process is flawed if you're thinking about people just going off of CVs and not judging based on someone's ability to learn or somebody's attitude. All of those things go into play and become much more important when you're really looking at overall opportunity, and how to get the most out of someone. But all really, really great things. So I was just wondering if we had gone over time.
There is no time. We can keep going if you want, but we've covered a lot already in around 30 minutes, and this was more of a kind of general overview episode again for those who are interested in watching the full shows more often and discussions. They will get a little bit more structured. We left it a bit more free flowing for the first one to not restrict ourselves, but this was an introduction to us, some of the things we want to talk about. So if you're interested in neurodiversity in the workplace, diversity in the workplace, the things in and around kind of business and marketing that could pop up as interesting, that would kind of affect your company, and just personal stories, anecdotes, and having a bit of a laugh. That's what this show is going to be all about. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, because both of us are going to be posting all kinds of clips from this, hopefully. And if you have any feedback or topics you want us to discuss, please leave them in the comments down below, and we will dedicate an episode to them if there is enough content on that particular topic. But I just wanted to say, and if there are any experts on ADHD or dyslexia, because it's really hard to get diagnosed nowadays. Like there's waiting lists up the wazoo. So if there are any experts that would like to give us some insight or want to come on and talk about it, please reach out. If you want to live diagnose us on a call for a laugh, then feel free. I'm pretty sure we're going to be really easy diagnoses. In the sheet it says on 1 to 10, how bad is it? It's all 10s, right? It's all 10s. So, yeah, come on. It'll be an easy job, I'll tell you that. But yes, experts of all kinds. Also, diversity in forms of like culture and race as well. I know I've got a couple of people in my kind of personal black book that I think would be really, really cool to talk to. Nice. And just to see how they are navigating getting companies to take action without it being seen as political or whitewashing, greenwashing, blackwashing, however you want to wash it. It's really interesting that kind of either nothing's taken seriously or everything's taken seriously when it comes to how it looks from an outside point of view, but how is it affecting the company that they particularly work at. So hopefully we can get a couple of experts on as well. Or if you just fancy dialing in, I'm sure we can figure out how to bring calls in on this. Send us voice notes or something. We'll listen to them and react. We could do reactions as well. So if there's anything you want us to react to, let us know. And we can have a look at that and analyse it live and direct, because that could be really fun. But I think that should draw episode 1 to a close, don't you think?
Yes. This has been great. Thanks, James.
Do you have a final message for the people?
No, I don't. But if you want to learn more about your personality and you're keen to, take an actual assessment, get in touch. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot about it as we go through the shows. But if you want to get an actual assessment done for yourself or your organization, let me know.
Yes, she's brilliant at it. She did mine, and it's spot on. Ladies and gents, have a good one, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Bye.